this meeting to order. A recording and or broadcast of this meeting is being made at the direction of the board, which may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. I'll call the roll. Steve?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Vladimir?
Here.
Sally? Here. Jessica is here too. I'm gonna do the Pledge of Allegiance. Can we have some students help do the lead the Pledge of Allegiance for us?
Not the national anthem, but I appreciate it. Baseball season. Yes.
Face the flag, right? Just face the flag and start.
Put your right hand to your heart, ready again. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Thank you so much. All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. On to closed session report. There's nothing to report from closed session. Superintendent's update.
Yeah, I have a few things. First of all, want to thank you all for your patience. We did cancel our last board meeting because of a combination of storm factors, no power outage, some damage out at our school sites where our attention needed to be elsewhere at the time. So I wanted to let you all know that we're working on some solutions for backup email, because that was a real challenge, not having access to email for 3.5 days. Well, it was nice. And some backup power as well, so we can maintain as much as possible for some time. So I know Eric and his team is working on some solutions for that. So thank you for your patience. I did want to give a shout out to the Oak staff and Kimberly Attell, Principal Kimberly Attell. You know, we had a tree fall on one of our classrooms and we had to relocate. Thankfully, no big injury, but certainly some damage. And we had to relocate a teacher in 24 hours to a new classroom. And I wanted to thank a few of our fabulous folks. So Judy Holtberg, who's a Springer teacher, Laura Cleaver is an Oak teacher, Elaine Cuzzy, who's a retired LASD teacher, Tally Brinkman and Celia Forrest over at Oak came in that very evening and helped set up a classroom. So when teacher and students walked in that next morning, it felt like a fabulous classroom. So I'm appreciative of their help and our maintenance and custodians and everybody who really made it all happen. It was quite a storm for certain.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Literally and figuratively. A couple events coming up tomorrow night. Loyola has their STEM Expo, as does Gardner Bullis, and Springer has their open house tomorrow night. So last week I enjoyed attending Covington and Almond's open houses. So great to walk through classrooms, to see a lot of our families and students celebrating their great work. A lot of our new and enrolled folks come in to check out what their new school looks like and what that work looks like. So that's fun to meet new families. So I wanted to get those on your calendar. Coming up, because we don't meet again until May 1st, Junior Olympics is Saturday, April 22nd. It's always a great event. We have spring break next week, and the evening of Junior Olympics, Shally, Jessica, and I are headed to Washington, DC for the Coast to Coast advocacy group. So we're excited to get to Washington, DC and talk about public education with our lawmakers. So.
No doubt a boondoggle. Sorry.
Wait, a boondoggle with your Congress people? I don't think that's the definition of a boondoggle.
Anywho, that is my report for the day.
All right. Moving on to the Loyola School presentation. Thank you, Mr. Julian, for being here.
Yeah, good evening. We are all thrilled to be here tonight to share the great work
that we are doing at Loyola. I want to thank our teachers, our students, and our parents for being here with us also tonight. Loyola's vision reads as follows. Loyola will be a place with opportunities for students to transfer learning to life. And during the first part of the pandemic year, we were working as a staff to determine how we would bring that vision to life. Where we landed was project-based learning. We all came to agreement that would be the best way to do that. So this year, all of our teachers engaged in high-quality professional development focused on project-based learning with the purpose of creating meaningful, relevant, and impactful learning opportunities for our kids. And each of our teachers has engaged students in at least one PBL unit this year, and they were amazing. So let me introduce you to Miss Esther Cho and some of her students. Miss Cho is one of our PBL pioneers. And she's here with her lions, and they're gonna take it away from here.
I'm just going to start off by talking about the process before they present their wonderful PBL projects to you. But essentially, PBL is just a teaching method that where students gain knowledge and skill based on their own investigations and inquiry. It's very much a student-led project where they respond to an authentic question or problem or challenge. In fourth grade, our driving question was how we can keep our community safe in the face of a natural hazard. By the end of this project, we wanted students to create a safety campaign where they can inform the public on how to be prepared and safe for one of California's natural hazards. Now, there were 6 milestones that the student went through. When I was planning out my PBL, the most important part for me was taking a huge step back. Being a facilitator, I did not want to directly feed students information or guide them too much because I wanted everything to come into fruition based on their own curiosity, questions they already have, as well as just what they're inspired by the process. And this was new for me too. So it really was this kind of unknown piece of which parts were they're going to like really shine and bring their own voice in. And so in milestone 1, I presented to them, what are just the different types of natural hazards that happen across the world? And we took those and mapped it all across the United States. And from this mapping out process, students realized that there are actually only 3 major natural hazards that affect California, which were droughts, earthquake, and wildfires. They chose one of these for their project to focus on. And then in milestone 3, with their choice, it is now time for them to do their research. And so they took their questions from milestone 2 to answer and begin their research. Again, this was very much student-led. I did not give them the questions for them to answer. I was ready to, but natural questions like the causes, the risks, what are the safety protocols the government recommends, evacuation plans, already those came up naturally from their own questions. Now, after they got some good solid background, it was time for them to meet with some experts already in the field. We got one of our retired firefighters, Gina's husband. And he came and talked about his experience with wildfires. I was talking about what he wished the public would know to be safe as well. And then students also met with 2 UCLA professors through Google Meet who were experts in droughts and earthquakes. And what was great about this is they were able to ask really high level questions that they couldn't find in their research, and it certainly didn't help answer that question either. So it was great for them to further their knowledge through this process. Now that they have become experts in their own right, it was time for them to create their safety campaign. When I asked them what platform they wanted to use, many of them did mention posters because after their presentations, they wanted to continually inform the public by putting their posters up all across the Loyola. So I introduced to them an idea, something called an infographic. And I told them they had 1 page. And their challenge is to make sure that they are concise and only put in the most important parts, because in an infographic, the pictures are just as important as the text. And so they met up with their group and they brainstormed their main ideas or subheadings that they want to include. Then they went on Google Draw and from scratch, they created their templates. Again, it was not handed to them, they're the ones who created it. And these are just some final drafts of their safety campaigns of infographics that they created. And then now in milestone 6, it was finally time for them to publicly present their product. They first presented to their peers, then to their parents and peers. And now they're going to present to some of our community leaders here, and they're super excited. So without further ado, I'm going to first bring up my wildfire group. Come on up.
Did you know that a wildfire can burn nearly 2.5 million acres? Getting to know a wildfire. What is a wildfire? A wildfire is a fast smoke object that can speed up to 14.27 miles per hour. Anything in its path can be eventually burned to the ground. The wildfire is known to be an uncontrolled fire in the woods, also known to be the wood fire. Wildfire damages. Most of the plants wildfires happen to be caused by humans. Humans cause 89% of wildfires. Our community has taken 1.2 million acres within 1 month. Wildfires can cause water pipes to break and can start a drought.
Have you made a wildfire emergency kit? To make one, get a medium-sized backpack. Inside of it, you should have a flashlight, a first aid kit, 2 drapings, 3 gallons of water per person, smoke masks, a manual can opener, and a multi-use Swiss Army knife. You may also want to add copies of important documents in case the real ones burn. Do you know where to go if a fire is in your house? First, you should know where to meet your family. Make sure to make many routes in case some of them are blocked. If all of your routes are blocked, go through the window. Your last resort is to go to the bathtub.
Use your items wisely. Don't drink nor eat all your food at one time. You can take a risk of dying. No water for 3 days can give you a high risk of dying or even worse. Make sure to use your batteries on your flashlight wisely because you might want to use it during the night in case you lose an item from your emergency kit.
Make sure that when you evacuate your house, you grab your emergency kit. If you see your pet stuck or you are not able to get to them, you have to leave them. But if you can get to them, bribe them or grab them and escape. It is important that you never go back into your house after you have escaped. Thank you for listening.
Droughts by Lauren, Nearing, and Tommy. Definition. Have you ever been in a drought? A drought is a time period where it gets drier than normal. A drought can happen anywhere, even in the northern parts of America. If you're in a drought, your water supply is a lot lower. A sad fact is California has been in a drought for 4 years. Causes and damages. A drought is caused by dry conditions which lead to less water. The damages of a drought is it gets harder for farmers to keep harvesting their crops. Another damage is a drought damages the ground by making cracks.
Shorter showers and baths. Have you ever taken a longer shower than you should? In a drought, taking shorter showers and baths are important. I recommend taking a 5-minute shower, mainly because you can save up to 10 gallons of water per day. What I don't recommend is taking a bath. Baths take up to 70 gallons of water, while a shower takes 17.
Water gardens less. Did you know your plants take about 16,000 gallons of water per year? When gardening, you should water your plants by hand. If you don't want to do that, you can get a sensometer. A sensometer measures how much water your plants need.
Check for water leaks. Have you ever had a water leak? Well, if you have, you know it's bad. When a drought occurs, you should check for water leaks every couple of months. If you don't check for water leaks, you can waste up to 2,083 gallons of water. Flush the toilet once. It's pretty stinky, but it saves water. If you flush the toilet once at the end of the day, you can save up to 1,800 gallons of water. Washing your car. In a drought, you may think that going and washing your car at a car wash is a bad idea. Well, you're right. If you wash your car at a car wash, you can use up to 80 gallons of fresh water. An idea for you is to go to a car wash and recycle water. If you do, you can save up to 2,310 gallons of fresh water a year. Pool. Has your pool ever lost water? In a drought, a pool might lose 1 to 2 inches of water a week. If you don't want to have it happen, pool covers come in handy. They come in handy to help stop the process of evaporation. Laundry. When you're in a drought, you want to save water, so here are some tips to do so when you're washing your laundry. First, you can reuse towels and clothes that aren't too dirty. Second, you can wash your laundry with a full load, saving 2.5 gallons of water while you're at it. Kitchen. When you wash your dishes in the dishwasher, you use up to 6 gallons of water. So to save water, you can wipe your dishes down with a damp cloth or sponge instead of rinsing it in the sink and scraping any large scraps into the compost with fork or spoon. Joke. What do you call a Pixar movie about the effects of dry heat on the mind? The answer is inside your out. Thank you for listening.
Final group, earthquakes. Come on up.
Earthquakes by Charlotte and Diane. What's an earthquake? An earthquake is an unexpected, high-speed, ground-shaking natural hazard caused by underground tectonic plates getting pulled apart or shut together, causing an explosion. Earthquakes are caused when underground rock splits and starts to move with flying speed along a fault. Due to the violent shaking of the ground during an earthquake, causes fault rupture in the ground. Fault ruptures, pieces of underground rock splitting or getting crumbled. Earthquakes also cause tall buildings to collapse and shatter into pieces. They also cause landslides, mudslides, and tsunamis. If you're in a car, pull over and set your parking brake. If you're outside, verify that you're far away from any kind of tall buildings and poles because they can fall. Finally, and last but not least, if you're in a building, duck and cover. Stay there until an aftershock. You should always wait at least 10 minutes after an earthquake because there's likely going to be an aftershock. Aftershock is usually lasts longer than the earthquake itself. Do not use the elevator to escape or evacuate during an earthquake. You can get stuck. Instead, use the stairs. You shouldn't make any calls during an earthquake. You could overload the communication system, making it hard for first responders to get their calls. So instead, text. Where do I go? You go to an open space far from trees and far from poles to verify. Don't go in your windows in case there's shattered glass. You get hurt. Don't go to campfires or fireplaces, under hanging furniture, or near a chimney. It could fall on you. After the aftershock, 1, remain calm and read with any housemates. 2, check electric lines outside your house for damages in case of a soon power outage. And 3, turn on your radio for your next direction. Quick joke, what is an earthquake during Romeo and Juliet called?
I don't know.
Answer, a Shakespeareans. Earthquakes, be aware, be prepared. An earthquake happen anytime, anywhere.
Of our presentation. I hope you are feeling safe and prepared. That's natural hazard. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those are wonderful presentations, and I know I feel a lot more prepared and know a lot more from your presentation. It was evident that you did a lot of work on this. And it's amazing to me what she told us about the fact that you came up with all of this on your own. So you really should be proud of yourself. So thank you. And you now, if you want to stay, you are more than welcome. But you're free to go home and get your homework done, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Patty?
We have plans. Yeah. All right, moving on to the consent calendar. Can I get a motion on the consent calendar?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, employee request to address the board, Los Altos Teachers Association. I guess we have a list. It's like.
Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to speak. My name is Melissa Powell. I'm a resource specialist, currently working at both Almond and Santa Rita. But the main reason I'm here this evening is I was the chair of our Los Altos Teachers Association Negotiations Committee. And I am here to give you a heartfelt thank you. Thank you to the board. Thank you to Sandra. Thank you to the administrative team for making your teachers feel heard and validated. We are so proud to be a part of the Los Altos School District community, and we just wanted to let you know that we really appreciate the support you've shown us, and we look forward to continuing to do great things together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On to the California School Employees Association, Elena.
Hi, good evening. I'm Elena Shea from Covington. I'm here on behalf of CSEA. It's nice to see the LATA contract brought to you tonight. CSEA is still negotiating, and we look forward to continuing discussions and hopefully finishing up and bringing something to our members soon. I just wanted to let you know that I got a communique from CSEA that they came out this weekend. We just heard about it today. And they're recommending that, given the uncertainty and volatility in the banking world these days, interest rates, inflation, stagflation, banks closing, cryptocurrency, all those things, that CSEA is now recommending that classified employees be paid in gold bullion.
Oh my God.
That
You got it on Saturday, right?
Yes. But I just want to bring a lighthearted moment. A lot of times in education, things are very heavy, and with good reason. We're educating kids, we're providing all these services, but I just want to make a little light.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My heart stopped for a second. When you got to gold bullion, I knew it was a joke. All right, moving on to community comments. Actually, I gotta, let me first announce this. To provide comment on an agenda item, speaker cards are to be submitted to the superintendent. Speaker cards will not be accepted once public comments begin. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. We do have two community comments. We have William Bassett and Deanna Brown. This time is reserved for members of the public and employees to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. The board is not permitted to discuss or take action on non-agenda items, except to instruct the superintendent to review the matter further, report back to the board at a subsequent meeting, or place the matter on a future agenda. The board may make a brief comment or ask clarifying questions. Based on the amount of speakers, like I said, it's William Bassett and Deanna Brown. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. So William Bassett.
Thank you. That's a hard act to follow. So I'd like to bring something to the board's attention, which I'd appreciate if the board could look into. And that is whether we handle our autistic students similarly to the other districts in the county. We have far fewer autistic children. And what worries me is the other districts have more, and they realize that autistic children, when put with general education children, are raised up. We have so few that we may think that an autistic child in a general education classroom will bring the general education students down, which is not the case. And I think that's something that we should look into, because we don't have a lot of experience with autistic children. Most of our children are very high performing, and I think there could be some reluctance to include an autistic child in a high performing general education classroom. And I'd appreciate if the board could look into that and kind of tell the community how we fare with other districts in this county. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deanna Brown.
Sorry, I just want to say thank you for giving me time to speak today. As a parent of a transitional kindergartner at Loyola, I should be sitting there with a smile on my face. And as a 4th grade teacher, I should be thrilled to see the wonderful, amazing things that one day my child might be able to do. But that's not what I was sitting there thinking. I was thinking that this is not the parenting experience that I expected when I brought my child back here. And as an educator, in interviews, they often ask you, can you name a teacher that inspired you to become a teacher? And I often think of my 5th grade and my 6th grade teachers over at Almond Elementary School. And that is why I fought so hard to bring my son to the school district. And
I cannot begin to tell you the things that have happened to my son this year, but there is one I would like to bring your attention to. In my family, report cards are sacred. We take education very seriously. My ancestors were slaves, so they weren't allowed an education. My mother and my grandmother were born in Thailand, and they had to walk hours to get to the nearest school. So my grandmother ended up making it her life dream to create a private school in her village so that people could have access to education. So report card day in my household is a very important day. And on Friday, March 17th, my son's teacher emailed all of the parents. Report cards are coming out, and these are the standards that will be talked about on the report cards. And I very excitedly emailed his teacher and said, can I have a hard copy? I know everything's digital. I know I'm a millennial, I can figure it out, print it myself, but could you please print it? Because in my family, we put those in a file, all those school photos, and we keep them forever. My stepdad, Bill Bassett, I guarantee you, he still has my file and my report cards in his office to this day. And I was looking forward to putting my son's right next to that. And I was told my son would not get a report card. Monday rolled around, and I get the email, your child's report card is attached. And my son's beautiful fall picture was there. He's got these great curly hair, even better than mine. And it was blank. So I emailed and I asked, and I pressed as a parent and I pressed as an educator to please write my son a report card. And the report card I got back said, insufficient data for grades. My son attended Almond for trimester 1, and we transferred into Loyola. He was in that class for 2 months before report cards went home. I get a daily behavior log that has his academics and his behavior goals. And more importantly, we had just had his IEP, his annual IEP the week before, where they assessed him. And they told me, your son can do this, 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 this. And I held his IEP in one hand and I looked at the standards that his teacher emailed me in the other, and I could see the data was there. So I asked again, and I asked again, and I asked again, can you please write my son a report card? And to this day, I still do not have a report card. Just insufficient data. So I ask you to look into this, not just for my son, but to make sure this isn't happening to other families with special needs as well. I don't understand why this is happening to our family, but more importantly, my 5-year-old son doesn't understand. So if the board could please look into that, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to action discussion items. We have disclosure of proposed collective bargaining agreement, LATA.
Alrighty.
Yes.
Here we are. So we have 2 items. The first one is disclosure. Eric put together the package that went to the county for approval for the LATA agreement. You should have access to the 2-year, multi-year projection that's required, the letter from the County Office of Ed, the actual LATA agreement, and a couple of the salary schedules for this year and for next year. So we wanted to make sure that you all knew that the county approved the raise that was included as part of the tentative agreement, that we could financially afford that raise for our LATA members. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the agreement itself or the finances. And then item 2, I ask that you consider approving the agreement.
Any comments or discussion? All right, then we can move on to item 2, just for bureaucracy. Any comments or questions on item 2, which is roughly the same thing? No. All right, can I get a motion to approve the collective bargaining agreement with the Los Altos Teachers Association?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, that's 5-0.
Can we go,
Hurrah, hurrah.
can we go back to community comments?
We can.
I'd just like to make sure that you will look into
Yep,
this.
on my notes.
Thanks.
I will report back.
On to professional learning and LASD. Dr. Drummond.
Hello. It's been a while since I've spoken with you. It's so good to be glad to be back. And I think it's also been a few months since Carrie shared an update about what we've been doing with professional development. So I'd like to kind of go back and talk about what's happened this year. And I'm excited to share with you where we're headed, direction we're going to take for the future. So far this year, we've done work with teachers in a number of areas. One of the big undertakings this year was work around diversity, equity, belonging, and inclusion. This is work that kind of stems from our work on the equity task force. We commenced this year at our September PD Day with a half day of training for teachers, and then repeated that again in our January day. We'll continue to dig into that work going forward. And so we're excited about that. We've also done after the pandemic, some retooling of our professional learning communities that take place with teachers on Thursday afternoons. Some really exciting things have happened there with teachers doing some individual projects addressing a common challenge with their colleagues in their classrooms, and then deciding on and implementing a new practice to address the concern, and then reflecting on the growth that they've made. So it's a real opportunity, and our teachers are taking advantage of using that as time to really develop their practice. You'll remember too, we had at the beginning of the year some substantial training for teachers in elementary school who would begin using the TWIG science curriculum. And they attended that training and have had opportunities for ongoing support throughout the year. And finally, we've worked in a number of ways to enhance the quality of job and embedded professional development that teachers get. We know that when teachers get training alone, that is kind of separate from what's going on in their classroom, it's not as effective as when they're doing the work in a meaningful way with the kids who are right in front of them. One of the things that we did this year was began looking at our January and our September and January PD days as two very connected experiences for teachers where they get choice in the strand that they would follow throughout the year. So they come to our September PD day, pick the strand that they're going to follow, attend those classes, learn things to implement, and keep data on from September to January, and then return in January for further reflection and learning to implement for the rest of the year. Additionally, of course, we have our ISTs working hard to support teachers through instructional coaching, and our very exciting launch of our own teacher induction program, which we're off the ground with this year. I'm gonna go a little further back because what we've done this year is really one piece of what we've done over the last several years in bringing a number of initiatives to teachers and students. You'll remember our work that goes on with the Portrait of a Learner, really defining the outcomes for kids in the 6 C's. A variety of curricula and instructional resources and routines that we've put in place over the last few years, the adoption of the anti-bias standards, and ongoing work with teachers in the implementation and schools in the implementation of classroom challenges and intervention, as well as intervention outside of the classroom for students who really need it. I bring all of these up because, as you can see, there's a lot of things, right? And with our leadership team, we've been this year exploring the idea of a couple of how might we's. One is, how might we do a better job of telling about the great things that we do for kids in Los Altos School District? And I like to think of this in two different areas. One is student outcomes, and we do talk about that. We talk about the great things we do for kids academically.
One thing that we talk about less is the experience we provide them. And how we get to those outcomes matters for kids in our schools. You heard a really great example today of the type of innovative and engaging things that happen in our classrooms, and we want to tell that story. We want a way to, and I put this down because we've fallen in love with this language. In LASD, we connect with who each and every child really is, put them at the center of their learning experience, integrate their social, emotional, cognitive, and academic development, and develop learners as full people. And if you walk into our classrooms, of course, you'll see that. And we want to continue with thinking about, if this is our vision and what actually happens in our class, how do we keep it going? So another how might we is, what does a framework look like that really helps to put all of this in place so that principals and others can give feedback to their staff about what this looks like in their classrooms, that teachers develop a shared sense of what this looks like and what this feels like, so that we can enact structures in our schools that really build a school environment filled with safety and belonging. And so that we have supports in place for all students and challenges for all students, and that we're prioritizing the initiatives district-wide that really make a difference for kids. So I want to introduce you to the design principles for schools. These are based on decades of research and education and from a partnership between two organizations. One is called the Learning Policy Institute, led by Linda Darling-Hampton, and the other is from Turnaround for Children, with Pamela Cantor leading that organization. These design principles do a really incredible job of helping us to create a vision or how all of those pieces that we've been working on for the last however long come together to create an amazing experience and really great outcomes for kids. It has 5 parts, as you can see. The first 2 really have to do with the quality of student sense of belonging in a school and the way a teacher builds the student to become that full person. The second, that's the first 2. Then if you look at the next 2, rich learning experiences and development of skills, habits and mindsets. Again, we saw a really great example of this type of learning here today, deep learning that engages children in things that take them beyond rote memorization, even beyond conceptual learning, to how they are going to apply their knowledge in the world. And then finally, a system for integrated supports. This, we call this framework, will continue to be a guide for us in our work for the remainder of this year, and we're anticipating for years to come. I'd like to invite you to listen to Sandra and I in our debut podcast episode. Shall I give a commitment on a date here, Sandra?
Recording Monday.
We're recording Monday. You might see it in a little bit after Monday, where we are planning on talking about and bringing in guest speakers or guest interviewees to talk to us about how these things really come to life in our schools. And so we'll be exploring all of the deep innovation and ideas that are behind each one of these, and sharing with our community the really great things that are happening, as well as beginning to do some work in professional development next year with our staff around this. So we will this summer have an institute for teachers. We'll bring them in for some training. The training will include elements of that wheel and also help to bring together many of the pieces that we've been working on for the last few years. We'll continue that great practice with our professional development days. We got positive feedback from teachers around, as well as our coaching and mentoring programs that our principals and leadership team have already began to engage this year in work around the design principles for schools. And we're preparing them to take the lead on that at each one of the school sites in the district. So I am really excited about the possibilities of the idea that we will have a podcast, but also that we will have a really clear framework for how all the pieces of our work fit together, and we can use that to guide professional development. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions?
Want to ask at the Summer Institute, which I think is a really great idea. Who's teaching the teachers at the centers?
We'll have a variety of folks. Our ISTs will be there. Our curriculum and instruction team will be there. We are planning on having some other teachers there doing some presenting, variety of folks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? It looks great. One of the things that popped up in my head, and it actually had to do with something I participated in the month since we've met, is that I went to, and it fits in the whole DEI part. And it's something I'd like to see in the future. It's professional development, but it's also community development. Sunnyvale and Fremont Union School District did this event on overcoming bigotry, where it actually was a panel discussion where about 100 people from the community came. And it was people on the panel were representing a very long laundry list of types of people: an Islamic woman, a Korean person, a Native American person, a Jewish person, a African American woman, and actually there could have been a bigger list of it. But it was all talking about in perspective how they've been treated growing up, and then ways that we could all be better citizens, be better humans, as actually the Native American said. But it's something I'd like to see us do in the future, because it's not only great for, I know it's kind of on the border of professional development, but it's good for our community too, for everyone.
Right.
The whole community, which includes our teachers, our parents, our students, really. Anyway,
That sounds great, Jessica.
while it was on my head, it just, when you brought it up, I'm like, we really need this for our people, all of them. And that's it. Anybody else? Moving
We're
on.
gonna say something?
I was just gonna say I'll connect with you for more
Yes.
details later.
Yes, sorry.
No worries.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Moving on to EMC Research Parcel Tax Survey results.
Us this evening, it's nice to see people outside of the Zoom box. Jessica Polsky Sanchez and Jeremy Hauser. Jessica is from EMC, who did our polling for potential parcel tax initiative in the fall. And Jeremy comes to us from formerly TBWBH and now in Team Civics. Yes, there we go. There we go. So we are glad to have, we're gonna put up, there we go. Jessica share a little bit about the results of our 400-person polling.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll show you this to advance the slide. I will do a little advancing here. Well, thank you so much for having us tonight. I am Jessica Polsky Sanchez. It's very nice to be back. It's been a number of years, but I've been working with the district for a very long time. So thank you so much for having us. So I just want to pass along a couple of notes on the methodology of the survey of likely voters in the district. We did do the survey in March, so mid-March. We conducted 400 interviews, a representative sample of likely voters. The survey was available in both English and Mandarin. And then the data are weighted slightly to be reflective of the likely voter demographics. And you can see we've been doing polling in this district for a number of years. And so listed on the slide are the surveys that have been conducted in the past. And you'll notice the one big change this time around was the change in methodology. Evolving methodologies nowadays kind of require that we reach out to voters not only by telephone and conducting telephone interviews, but also online by email and text invitations. So we did incorporate online interviews along with live telephone interviews this time around. So to keep that in mind, and also just want to point out the overall margin of error for a sample size of 400 is plus or minus 4.9 percentage points. So keep that in mind as we look through the results. So before we get into the detail, just a snapshot of our key findings here. We do see that voters in the district continue to appreciate the high quality of the positive marks, particularly when it comes to student academic achievements and the job that teachers are doing. Although awareness of the need for additional funding may be on the lower side, we do see that voters are invested in maintaining high quality schools, even if that means raising taxes. So they do value maintaining high quality schools. When it comes to a potential measure to renew the district's parcel tax with a modest increase, we see support today just above the 2/3 threshold that's required for passage. Retaining highly qualified teachers and maintaining quality for academics along with quality neighbor schools. These are almost universal priorities for local voters. And we also see that additional information about the need for funding in order to retain teachers is very helpful in conveying the benefits of a potential measure. Forward. So just to start us off, this is a question that is not about the schools at all, but really just helps us set the context for how people are feeling about the local economy. So we've been asking this question over time, thinking about the future. How do you expect economic conditions to be 6 months from now? Would you say better or worse or about the same? So you can see how these results have fluctuated over time. And what we're seeing today is just a small plurality, feeling a little pessimistic or a little bit cautious about the future economy, although we have about 1 in 4 who anticipate better conditions. So kind of a mixed bag when it comes to expectations on the economic outlook. Another question that we've been asking over time here in the district, would you say that the elementary and junior high schools in this district have a great need for more money, some need for more money, a little need for more money, or no real need for more money? So again, this is an awareness question. How aware are the voters of the need for additional funding for the schools? And you can see we've got data going back to December 2010. With a little bit of softening on perception of need for additional funding over time, we still don't see a substantial difference today compared to the last couple of times that we did research here. So just under half seeing a need for additional funding, kind of a mixed bag when it comes to awareness of need. That said, when we ask how local voters would grade the school, so we say students are often given grades if A, B, C, D, or F to know the quality of their work. So suppose you were to grade the school in the same way, what grade would you give the district? And you can see 41% would give the district an A and 37% a B. So overwhelmingly very positive grades with just ever so slight softening compared to what we've seen in the past. And that certainly could be related to the difference in methodology from telephone only to a mixed mode methodology this time around. So a number of other ratings of how would you grade the district on the following: the job teachers are doing, the quality of buildings and grounds, student academic achievement and test scores, and the management of district monies. And what you see here are a continuation of very, very positive grades that voters are giving to the district, especially on the job teachers are doing, overwhelmingly positive grades there. Same thing with the quality of buildings and grounds and student academic achievement and test scores, even though there's a slight softening on that might be related to some perception around how the pandemic may have impacted education, although that's speculation. So slight softening, despite that slight softening, overwhelmingly positive grades. And then on the management of district monies, more positive than negative grades here, and that's always what we like to see in a school district. And we also wanted to show you that when we look at the subset of our sample, who are voters and also parents of students currently attending the Los Altos School District schools, that's only 68 respondents out of our 400 interview sample, but still like to see how they are grading the school on these various aspects. And you can see again, overwhelmingly positive grades given on the job teachers are doing, academic achievement, quality buildings and grounds, along with the management of district money. So positive grades from voters who are also parents. So to get a sense of how people feel about taxes, how they're feeling compared to what we've seen in the past in this district, we have a couple of questions. We ask if you agree or disagree. I would never vote for a tax, no matter what the money raised would be used for. So we're trying to gauge what portion of the voter population is just against any new tax, regardless of what it's for. That's a very small portion. It's slightly higher than what we've seen in the past in this district. But that said, the vast majority, 79%, at least somewhat disagree with that statement. So really, there's people willing to invest when it comes to investing in the right things. And we do see that investing in the right things, the values here are around maintaining high quality schools. So do you agree or disagree? Maintaining the quality of our schools should be a top priority, even if it means raising taxes. 3 out of 4 at least somewhat agree with that statement. So those people are with us on that. So getting to this question that we asked to gauge what is the level of support today, the election were held today, for a potential parcel tax measure to renew the existing parcel tax with a modest increase to attract and retain highly qualified teachers, protect small class sizes and core academic programs in reading, writing, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math for elementary and junior high school students. Shall the district's measure be adopted, renewing expiring local funding at the current $223 rate plus $72 per parcel, providing $3.7 million annually that cannot be taken by the state, implemented by voters with senior exemptions and adjustments, independent oversight, and minimum funds for administrators. So if the election were held today, we could vote yes to approve or no to reject this measure. We see 68% initially inclined to vote yes. Another 3% are initially undecided, but when pressed, do you lean toward yes or no? They lean yes. So that totals 71% in support of this potential measure initially. So that does clear the 2/3 threshold. Right on the border, if you consider the margin of error, we have about 1 in 4 who are voting no initially, and then 4% who are undecided. Taking a look back at polling and elections on parcel tax measures in the district over time can be helpful. So we'll put together just kind of a look back. The purple, if you can see the purple color showing polling results over time, and then the blue bars showing election results. So it's just helpful to see. We've seen support over time, right near or just below the 2/3 threshold for passage. We saw just ever so slight a drop the last time the district sort of comparing polling to election results, but that's within the margin of error. So polling has kind of closely matched election results on parcel tax measures here. We did ask about a series of potential components or outcomes that could be included in a parcel tax renewal measure. What you're seeing here are the items that kind of rise to the top in terms of priorities and where those priorities align best with those of the district. So on a scale from 1 to 7, where 1 is not at all important and 7 is extremely important, how would voters rate each of these? And you can see rising to the top, attracting and maintaining highly qualified teachers. 92% consider that at least somewhat important, 60% extremely important. Protecting programs in reading and writing, also almost universally important. Protecting programs in STEAM, 90% consider that important. Maintaining high quality neighborhood schools, almost universally important. And you can see other items as you move on down this list, all of these overwhelmingly important to voters. So we also got some feedback on some additional information. So providing a little bit more detail to voters on some of the potential benefits or reasons to support a potential measure. So the kind of most compelling things that voters find, or the information that they find most compelling, shown here on this slide. So attracting and retaining teachers, again, is a very convincing reason to support a measure. The measure allows the district to continue to attract and retain skilled, experienced, and dedicated teachers to maintain high quality education in our schools. You can see 79%
find that a convincing reason to support a measure. We have a message here about some of the accountability features of a potential measure. This is important information to convey to voters. Also explaining about how this measure will help make sure we can retain teachers in the district, make sure they can afford to live here and don't leave for higher paying districts. This is important information. And then reminding voters that this is an existing tax with a modest increase to maintain private funding for public schools. These are all very helpful and important information. We also presented a series of reasons why voters might oppose a potential measure. So we also wanted to kind of hear how voters would react to opposition, reasons to oppose. So some people think now is just not the time for a measure like this. It's too much money and things like this. So we wanted to test both kind of the high level of support after all the benefits are explained, as well as after somebody who might oppose a measure says what they might say. And you can see, we don't see a lot of fluctuation over the course of the survey with an initial total support at 71%. We do reach 73%, so just ever so slight of an increase after additional information. And then we do see a drop to below 2/3 after reasons to oppose are presented. So we do see some vulnerability to that sentiment that, oh, maybe now isn't the time, or maybe this is too much money. So you do see some fluctuation over the course of the survey. We also wanted to see what if the measure were a simple renewal with no increase. And so we asked, if this were a measure that would renew the existing parcel tax with no increase. And you can see, we do see a kind of a substantial jump, 73% after reasons to oppose, to 76% support for a measure with no increase. So certainly a good level of support for that, but it is similar to the level of support for the measure with a modest increase after voters understand the benefits. So just to conclude all of this data, we just want to emphasize that we see here voters are willing to invest in their local high quality schools, and that a measure to renew the parcel tax does appear feasible for this year, provided that voters understand the benefits, specifically attracting and retaining high quality teachers and maintaining high quality academics and neighborhood schools. So I'm going to bring Jeremy up for a few more notes, and then we will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jessica. Madam President, members of the board, it's great to see you. Jeremy Hauser, I'm a partner with Team Civics. We are a communications consulting firm who specializes in preparing revenue measures for the ballot for school districts, cities, and other public agencies, and then in turn running the campaigns with independent advocacy groups to pass those measures. I personally have had the pleasure of working here in Los Altos with schools since 2014, both on Measures N and GG, and very much looking forward to working with you all on another successful renewal, hopefully here in November. So following the good news from Jessica, and I would emphasize that it is good news, there's reason for optimism. I thought it might be helpful to kind of walk through our roadmap for the next few months that takes us towards a renewal on the November 7th, 2023 election ballot. A really important date for us that we're going to be working backwards from is August 11th. That is the deadline by which we need to deliver a final resolution to the Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters in order to qualify for the ballot this November. So this timeline kind of builds us towards that August 11th deadline over the next 5 months. So taking us back to the present day, now that we have positive poll results, we'd like to get to work developing informational communications to start helping the district tell the story to the community at large as to how important this parcel tax funding is to your schools and teachers and community. So what that will look like is creating a fact sheet, FAQ, presentation for the public, content for online and social media, whatever the district needs to help tell that story. And this would be consistent with efforts that we've undertaken in the past in the ramp up to bond and parcel tax elections. We'd also recommend sending a direct mail piece to all registered voters and parents, introducing the need to renew the parcel tax and also starting to invite community feedback as you as a district explore this renewal. Again, this is consistent with past efforts we've conducted here in the district, and we'd also recommend sending that content digitally, so that voters and parents can consume the information in the method that's most comfortable for them. As we move into May, we recommend the district begin to conduct outreach, both internally to stakeholders like teachers, classified staff, parents, folks who have a pretty good idea of the ins and outs of the budget of the district and the day-to-day operations of the schools, but also external stakeholders like business leaders and elected officials and other community groups that maybe aren't as in tune to the daily operations, but still have a vested interest in the schools and the community. And we recommend that outreach process is as much giving information as it is getting back information, right? The poll is a great tool for us to get a really good roadmap for what a parcel action rule looks like, but we can't replicate the one-on-one conversations that can have in that stakeholder outreach process that we think are really important as you're weighing this decision. Moving into June, we recommend sending a second direct mail piece that would kind of outline the feedback that we received in April. We could feature some nice end of school year success stories, maybe highlight a teacher or two, to continue that conversation with the community and remind them how important this source of funding is for education here in Los Altos. In July, we would recommend actually conducting a tracking survey and checking back in with voters to make sure that we're still looking at a viable parcel tax renewal that will allow us to test the final tax rate and structure, but it will also allow us to check in on the current economic climate. I think we all saw that slide earlier in the presentation, that there's certainly a more cautious mood. And I think it'd be prudent for us to check in one more time and make sure that if the economy has changed, or more importantly, voters' perceptions of the economy has changed, we get this question in front of them one more time. We obviously would bring those results to you as a board for a study session, and then we begin working with your legal counsel to actually draft the resolution and various documents needed to call an election in November. End of July, we'd also recommend sending a final direct mail piece so that we can stay in touch with the community and let them know how this process has progressed, and invite them to the board meeting in August where you would actually adopt the resolution, place it on the ballot. And as you can see, August 7th is your last regularly scheduled meeting before that deadline on the 11th. That is the date we're targeting to bring a resolution back in front of you for final review and approval. Once you adopt the resolution, district staff has until the 11th to deliver it to the registrar of voters. At that point, the measure is on the ballot, and we would need to transition to a privately funded, independently coordinated advocacy campaign. I'm sure you are all aware that the district cannot use resources to advocate for or against a parcel tax renewal. So at that point, there would be a bit of a passing of the baton to an independent advocacy group that would help take it across the finish line. And with that, I think both I and Jessica are happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone have any questions? Brian?
Just to clarify, the slide that you showed sort of the rebound, can go back that one. No, further. That one. With no increase. So is that no one-time increase or no inflation index or both?
No one-time increase is sort of the intention, although this is the wording of the question right here.
Right.
The proposed measure renewed funding at the current annual rate of $223 with no increase.
So it's a little bit bigger.
Basically, no. Any other questions? Weird. Sorry.
I mean, all the information is presented so well and with so much detail that I had a question. I'm just
Discussion, as we have actually a lot to discuss. Anybody want to start?
Actually, I have another follow-up question. Did you get any sense? So this was the proposal that you sort of asked at the beginning, right? Was both for an increase, but also until terminated by, I can't remember the terminology, but not a sunsetted the way the current one, the current 223 one is. Did you get any, were there any comments or feedback or any sense from the poll as to the reaction to that, or if it was not even noticed particularly?
Yeah, we actually, that was among the kind of pieces that we tested in the poll as reasons why an opponent might oppose a measure. It certainly was an area that some people found a convincing, reason to potentially oppose a measure. So, yeah, we did explore that in the poll. Yeah.
So I mean, that's one of the things that I'm sort of thinking about is that we're sort of, the sort of maximum proposal, one way of thinking about it is sort of has three changes from the status quo, right? Sort of the one-time increase, the ongoing indexing to inflation, and making it permanent. And so it's sort of like there's 8 permutations that we could go for, and I'm sort of not sure how, that seems like a lot to try to A/B test. So I'm not sure how to think about figuring out what the sweet spot is.
And in this area, as she was mentioning, the things they said that were opposing were any extra taxes that did bring it down 63%. And I think some of how we can combat it, or at least see if we can get those numbers to change, is the plan at the end. So the last 2 slides from Team Civics, the communication piece. I do wonder about in the tracking poll whether we granularize some of that opposition to figure out if it's still, the numbers are still lower, how we can make it better. For sure.
Also agree with your comment about communications, because I think it's even at the thing we're at for the check the other day.
Yeah.
People were surprised to hear that we are where we are in ranking by comparable districts in the area, how much we pay. They don't know that. They assume because of where we are, that we are higher up the scale.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's just an unknown reality. And so the more we emphasize where we are and why we are there, I think that may have an impact on your feedback on tracking, because I think there's just a misconception of where we are. So.
Yeah, kind of to build on what Steve was saying, I was taking notes and it seemed like for us to be successful in passing this, we have to do, I guess the job that we always have to do is raising awareness of what our actual funding situation is. Because there is that misconception that, oh, you're in Los Altos, you must be well funded. Whereas in fact, we're not. And I do appreciate you saying voters need to understand the benefits. But I think, yeah, I totally agree with you. But I think that our voters do understand the benefits of having a strong school district. They just have to look at their property values, and there's a lot of ramifications having a strong school district. But I think that reasons of why we need the money and what it's for is going to be really, really important.
Absolutely. Vladimir, do you have any
Any comments about what other districts are facing, on what their experience is, and anything you want to say about that? Other districts?
I would say from, the experiences that we've had thus far this year, there are others in a similar circumstance. I think that given kind of the environment that we're in, I don't think anyone's going to be at 90% yes right now on a measure like this. But we are seeing elsewhere along with here that people are still invested in their schools, whether they have children in schools or not. And so we are seeing support at similar levels in other countries around the Bay Area.
And I would just add that Los Altos supports its schools in a way that is not comparable to lots of other districts. I think voters in the community at large certainly recognize the value of the school district here. They might give you a hard time every now and then, but I think they understand how pivotal a strong functioning school district is to their own property values and just general, the community at large. So I think these numbers bear that out. Yes, there has been some softening. There's also been a lot of economic uncertainty in recent months that I think has permeated all of California. I think here in particular, this poll was in the field at the exact same time that Silicon Valley Bank went down. I think that is of note. Obviously, that was not an isolated incident, that was connected to greater economic trends, but I think all of these numbers should be viewed through that lens. And it's really why going back and doing a tracking poll is going to be so important, because we don't know what the economy is going to look like in a few months. But we will in a few months, right? And I think it's really important that we ask voters again and make sure that these numbers haven't softened or grown. But I think it's important that we check back in.
How did it, I was interested when you were doing the LASD historical context. And actually, when we went into the 2011 parcel tax, the prior polling was 63%. And I know we won that by like 40 votes. It was skin of our teeth, but it was interesting. I don't know if I feel comfortable going in at that, but I don't think I paid attention to it earlier when I had seen it. I'm like, oh, wait, oh.
There was an adjustment to the amount that we tested from the polls of the
Okay.
as well. That might-
Okay, that helps too.
But May would be a similar, or November would be a similar election environment to 2011 in that it would be a standalone election where
Yes.
we would be the only item on the ballot, right?
Yeah.
Which means generally lower voter turnout, but also means that an independent campaign can have more influence over turning out their supporters, right, or opponents.
Yes.
So I think that's important to note as well.
Are they gonna be competing, and are there gonna be statewide measures on the ballot that might affect people?
There will not be a regularly scheduled election this November, because we're looking at 23. There will be in November of 24. But we're eyeing and recommending a renewal this year in November.
Which is another discussion as it relates to the cost, of putting that on the ballot, because it literally would be the only thing on the ballot. Yeah. So I guess our question right now would be, what sort of direction we want to give Sandra and Team Civics on this. My opinion right now is based on the polling that we should continue on. That definitely need this communication plan to see if we can move these numbers. I feel most comfortable with these numbers, but I feel like if we get the communication plan and get people to really understand what the situation we're in, I think that we can move the needle. We still aren't deciding until August 7th, truly, whether we're putting it on the ballot, but I think we should give it its best college try. Yes.
In some of the previous cycles, in the history slide, you sort of say, there was sample A and sample B, which I assume is actually separate polls, not questions asked to the same respond, like a given respondent would get one or the other. And so I was just wondering whether, given the number of potential levers here, whether that's something that we should think about, or whether you would or would not recommend that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. A split sample, or when you see sample A or sample B, that's when we've historically used split sampling. So we take half of respondents in a given poll and ask them about one thing and the other half and ask them about something else. It's a tool that's available, but is maybe not as recommended nowadays when you can't get as large of a sample, because response rates have been declining over time. And so the margin of error goes up enough that it's really hard to detect real differences.
Any other comments? How does the rest of the board feel about?
I actually feel pretty good about your polling results. I mean, I think we're above the knife's edge, but even if we were on the knife's edge, it's still close enough that I think we should definitely keep pushing forward. I think I might have missed it. Are we going to poll again to see whether our communications efforts were successful or not?
Yes, we'd love to go back in the field in July,
Okay.
which is about as far as we can push it. We'll probably already be putting Jessica under a little bit of a time crunch, but it's as close as we can get to that deadline in August, and as far as we can get from today, so that we can get some time in between the two polls. But yeah, we totally recommend doing that, so that we can check back in before we make the final decision.
Well, I just kind of phrase it, to be honest with you, you said, if I look at the other polls when the other things were run, obviously, as you mentioned earlier, the impact of the economy is much more negative. If we're running in that environment, it's a different type of messaging we have to, do you believe? Is it something, is the approach different, I guess, from that aspect? I'm asking, have you been through that? What should we be thinking about?
I think the more that an eventual campaign talks about dollars and cents and not about academic outcomes, the worse position they're putting themselves in, frankly. And looking at these results right now, to me, it is really clear that your community values your teachers so much and the services they provide to their students. And I think, frankly, there's a lot of work to be done just to kind of get the community up to speed about the role that teachers play in students here, and specifically here in Los Altos, how it's different from other communities, right? And I think there's some messaging to be done about, home prices and how teachers are being driven out of the community in record numbers just because they can't afford to live here. This was one of the first polls I've ever seen where property values was not amongst the top arguments. And it's almost because we're arguing against ourselves, right? Like strong property values also mean that teachers can't afford to live here, right? And when put together, the teacher message jumped to the top. So to me, yes, I think the economy is going to affect overall support and tax sensitivity, but I think our message is really always going to have to be about the academic outcomes and why this funding is important, right? So I think that won't change. There might be nuanced differences, but I feel pretty strongly that our narrative and our story is going to be about the wonderful work that teachers are doing here and the various academic programs that they are supporting to make student achievement as high as it is.
Anyone else? You guys are really tough today. So I'm taking this as, we're okay with directing them to continue on. All right, if you don't agree, speak
Well,
now.
is there, so, I mean, in terms of concrete direction we might have to give, we had significant expenditures envisioned before our next board meeting that.
I guess
approval of?
you're working for free. No, you're not, but well, we don't have a contract with you quite yet, but that's another story.
I think it was changed over.
The mailer does cost.
Yeah.
It is above, it's not included in the contract, whatever contract it is. So that is an expenditure, so, and we don't meet till May, and you want to get a mailer out in April.
I do believe we have a contract in process,
Yes,
correct? And I believe there's pricing separately in that contract.
so the contract we had stuff about how much mailers cost and how much, I guess. He's asking about expenditures and we're not meeting till May, so discussing what, I believe it's in the tens of thousands of how much a mailer would be.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact contract.
And I'm okay with that. I know that's generally the cost. And so then we can talk about other mailers and whatnot going forward and have more concrete information. But for
So
April,
would that mean that you would bring to an expenditure of needing to cover a mailer?
I think that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that. All right.
As long as you do it both.
We'll cover that in a second.
Yeah, no. I think that's it.
Are you taking point in terms of, so I'm just looking forward to this next steps. So if we're gonna do outreach to internal stakeholders in May.
I'm definitely was
presumably
gonna
need
be
to
taking.
Organize that, so.
I'll be taking point, and if I can't do it, I'll be tapping, if I can't do the meeting.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you
Yeah.
wanted a second person formally tapped. as
I don't know,
somebody
we
to help
can
take
have
that load.
I definitely want to be one of the point people.
Maybe we can sit down and
Yeah.
put together kind of our action plan for
Yeah.
what you all need to do. Who do we
Yeah.
want to visit? Who's
Yeah.
going to do what?
Yeah.
You're building product for us, presentations and what have you,
Yeah.
getting the mailer set up, and then we can work
Yeah.
on
And some of this is not unlike the, when we've done processes like this before, it doesn't necessarily have to be, it can be all of us. But they have given up a communication plan and script, as it were, and we use it. So I think that's a good thing. Awesome. I think that's it. All right, moving right on. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming. All right, never mind. There we go. Moving on to Community Health Awareness Council checkup date.
Hello,
Hi there.
good evening. I'm here to give you a really brief check update, and a kind of look ahead to next year. So, Greg just introduced me to you, and so when we're thinking about CHAC and mental health providers supporting our students, it would fall into the area of integrated systems of support. Although you could also argue that it's creating environments full of safety and belonging, maybe even positive developmental relationships. So a year ago, Jennifer Kiker, Aaron Green, and I were here, and we asked for an increase in mental health services to meet the increasing needs of our students and to be responsive to the demand due to the pandemic. And you all graciously agreed to support us in that. Just a little bit of background, so we have some common vocabulary. So CHAC offers some different levels of support in terms of their therapists. So they have 3 different levels that they offer us. So an AMFT, which is the Associate Marriage and Family Therapist, the TMFTs are the ones who are in training, and then the doctoral practicum students. And each of them have different levels of education, and then what they're able, their direct hours that they're able to service students. And just as a measure for you, a typical elementary session is about 30 minutes per student. So this past year, we had really nice support this past year in our schools. So you can see that every school had 4 days of support, either being provided by 1 or 2 people, and then Santa Rita had 5 days of support. The next column shows the number of students that have been seen this year. So as of last week, and this is students who maybe aren't currently being seen, but students have been seen and then have been exited. And that number covers the individual sessions that have been seen. They also run group sessions, and that number is not captured in here. And you can see the degrees of the therapists that we've had this year. And so we definitely increased our quantity, and we prioritize the AMFTs. And so basically, given that things have stabilized compared to a year ago, we would really like to get back to our pre-pandemic levels of support. So we have a proposal, we work with CHAC, and our proposal for next school year is to go down to roughly 2 days a week per site, with the exception of Santa Rita keeping that 5 days a week, just because they're a higher needs site. And then we would also have another AMFT who would be with us 4 days. We have them tentatively slated for Loyola right now, but thinking about maybe flexing them to spread them out at different sites. But basically that every site would have 2 days of support provided by CHAC. And the implications for the financial impact here. So this past year, our mental health support costs around $424,000. Next year, going down to the decrease in the number of mental health providers, it would be around $277,000. Any questions?
Any questions?
This is supplemented with our folks from the county, on the county services.
Meaning,
I'm just totally.
The other supports.
like our the El Camino grant that we have with our mental health therapists in the junior high. Yeah, so this just covers our elementary school. So there's not any proposal to change the level of support at the junior highs. They'd still have the same mental health therapists at the junior highs.
I think I am asking about Catherine and the work that Catherine is doing.
The school linked services.
Yeah.
Yeah, school linked services. So, I mean, that's still going on. So we need less people because we have these other supports, or like.
Yeah, she helps connect families to resources outside of the school community. And so Yeah, so we would still have our school-based support, but then she's the addition to help us get connected to the outside supports, and she does work with the county.
I just want to make sure that our families understand that even though we're reducing the number of people,
Yeah,
but the level of care for our kids is still high.
yes, that is definitely our
Yeah.
priority as well as a psychologist, yes.
Any other questions? Any discussion? Because this is actually an action item. We have an MOU in front of us. Any discussion? No, Mara?
I think if Claire, you and your team and Sandra think that this is what we need, then I trust your expertise. That's why I don't have this.
Yeah, we met with the
Yeah.
chat folks several times. I know Claire works with the school psychologist. Looking at the numbers of students we served, and something Claire and I talk a lot about is the difference between school-based mental health support and services and all-encompassing mental health support and services. We really are focused on those school-based services, the needs that are impacting students' ability to learn. So with all of that, both Chuck and us agreed that this would likely meet our needs for next year.
And I will say that the psychologists have been very grateful for the support that's been provided this year. And I know that they are very capable to continue to support the needs of our students at the elementary site. And they definitely advocate when we need more or when we need to tap some other resources. So I'm confident that they will tell us when they need more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree exactly with what Shelley said. Can I get a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding the check?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you very much. Thank you. Claire. Moving on to 10th site building design comparisons. Mr. Tivich.
So
Do you want me to, so I'll do a little
Sure.
intro as Eric gets his presentation up and running. So one of the pieces we wanted to bring to you, you all know that we are deep in the CEQA process right now around the 10th site. And that is moving forward. I believe we're anticipating a report to come in early fall from the CEQA that would then get publicly noticed and follow that trajectory. One thing I want you all to be thinking about, because it has been many, many years within our district where we've built a school from scratch, is that there are more options available than there have been in the past. So I asked Eric to put together a fairly in-depth slide presentation, really talking about what those differences are. All of our schools right now have a combination of stick-built buildings and modular buildings. I don't think we have any prefab, anything on our campuses. So really want you thinking about what options might we want to consider with some more in-depth information.
Thank you for the intro. Yeah, tonight, just kind of talk about some of the three main options that are out there is the difference between a stick built, a modular and a prefabricated. They're all a little bit different and they all have pluses and minuses and some pros and cons, and there's cost differences always, and that's always a concern for us. We want to be the most cost effective way to deliver a project. So stick built is the one that most people are aware of, and most of our buildings that are constructed in our district are stick built. It's traditional construction. Designer designs it. They bring in all the raw materials, they're bringing all the steel and all the lumber and big, huge truckloads of it. And then they actually fabricate it on site. They cut it in certain lengths. They put the walls up. It's very expensive to do that because they actually have a lot of waste, right? Because when you buy it all in bulk, sometimes there's material waste. And so there's something to be said about that. The carpenters will actually measure each cut each stud and fit it in the exact location. They build the walls and then they put the walls up. So it does take some time to do that. Modular construction is they usually build it in a shop. It's some big warehouse somewhere. A lot of the modular buildings that we have, all the portables that you see, the mobile modular portables that are on our campuses, These were built and fabricated in some warehouse, usually in the Central Valley where the labor cost is cheaper. And the MEP F is mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection. And those are things that they can come pre-made, pre-assembled, they can box it up, and it's a very low cost, because the labor is much less expensive to make it. The raw materials aren't as great, and the building materials aren't as good as you would get in a stick built. So there's some advantages to doing that. You can get them very quick, and some of them are pre-checked. They call it PC, pre-checked. And so a lot of modular buildings are approved by DSA already, so you can get them very cheap. Some districts will actually sell a modular building. You can buy them from other districts and they can be shipped here. Prefabricated though, is we can actually build parts of the project in a shop. And you can build wall systems, window systems, HVAC, mechanical systems to be built in a shop for a lower cost. And you have a pre-checked design and it's much cheaper. It's quicker than a stick built. And a lot of school districts are going to these options. I'll take there's a couple of slides in here that show Fremont Union High School District, Sacred Heart Prep, and then Palo Alto Unified can also be doing prefabricated. You can make full wall panels in a shop. So instead of actually constructing on site, they're built in a shop somewhere, and then a crane comes in, they take a full wall system, and they can put a whole wall on the side of the building up in a day. And it's much cheaper. And then the thing that people don't realize is you're saving a lot of it in general conditions. General conditions is when a contractor is out there, they have their trailer there and they're managing the project. Well, if you can cut your general conditions down of having the contractor on site, you're going to be saving a lot of money. You can save general conditions by building the sites quicker on site, less general conditions for the owner, which would be us, the district. Uh-oh. There we go. Pros and cons. Stick built, if you want a customized a lot with no other options, you want a high degree of design, you can design anything the architect dreams up and the owner approves, that is the way to go. But you have to have a very nice budget and a schedule flexibility. Modular is the fastest, the least expensive, but you don't have a lot of flexibility. If you look at the portables in all of our schools, they all look exactly the same. Not a lot of flexibility. It's a portable, and that's the way it's going to look. The buildings don't last as long as if they're modular, right? 20 years is the lifespan. And then a prefabricated, you can get high quality at lower cost, not the lowest like modular, and you have some flexibility. You don't get everything you want, but it's a better way to go if you're really concerned about your budget. And it's a better way, it's much better option than modular, but less expensive than stick built. If you look on a chart, you see the ability to customize prefabricated, you do have some options to customize. The cost is lower than stick built, but stick built is a custom built, it's the most expensive, and the ability to customize is the greatest. And modular is the lowest cost, but not a lot of options. Fremont Union High School District is a case study. They had a building that housed classrooms, private offices, staff training facilities. They had a cafe and a kitchen, and they had a mock apartment. The mock apartment is for the special needs students so they can learn the life skills and living skills. Very, very important program for our special needs students. But the problem was, how do we do one building with all these different things? Well, you can do that because if you have a prefabricated building, the building on the outside is the same, but you can actually customize the interior spaces, and that makes it much more advantageous for schools, new schools that have a lot of different programs you might have. The other issue was constraint. They didn't have a lot of room. This was their old district office, and there was nowhere else to put things. It was a tight quarters, not a lot of places for construction laydown areas. Not the best place for construction, but by doing prefabrication, the project got done quicker and less expensive, and it made things go quicker. Because as you know, one of the things is limited budget and quickly escalating costs. The quicker you do the project and you secure the bid, it's going to be more cost effective. The longer you wait and the construction project lasts longer and longer, as costs start to escalate. And this is a great chart from 2014 all the way to 2021. And you can see the construction escalation cost are through the roof, and this is like right before, all the recent inflation that we're seeing, so the numbers are probably off the charts on this graph. But that's the one thing you really want to talk about, is when I mentioned, general conditions. The quicker you can secure a contract, the quicker you can get a project built, you're gonna save money for sure in escalation costs. The other one is temporary housing. Now, not so much for the tent site, but a lot of schools that do construction or modernization projects, they need to find a place to put the kids while they're tearing down a building and putting a new building in. And temporary housing, the quicker you can build a project, the less temporary housing you have to find for staff and students, and that's an advantage for sure if you do some sort of prefabricated versus stick built. Educational options, you can see the panels will come in, and I watched them in one day do a whole 2 sides of a building, and you can see the panels came in, they're pre-made in the shop, they drop them in, they fasten them down, bolt them down, and it's like the walls are in instantly. If they were doing a stick built, it would take weeks and weeks to do that. And so this is it's a much better way to do it. It's the speed to market is lowered on the amount of spent on temporary housing. It has design flexibility. It's just a better way to go, much more cost advantage. This is Sacred Heart Prep, which we took a tour on. And if you look at this building, you'd be hard to believe, say this, oh, was this modular? No, this is actually a prefabricated building by Timber Quest. And it's a joint venture with XL Construction and ADIS Architects, and it's their design product. Sacred Heart Prep did it, and it turned out to be a great project. And this is the exterior. It looks like one of our normal classroom buildings. And if you look on the inside, a lot of natural wood elements. You can see the lighting elements are in there. A lot of natural light was in there. We toured inside. It was a beautiful, this is the kindergarten classrooms, and just the design quality is there. People sometimes think of prefab as being modular. It's not loud. It's not that way. And then this is another one, Hoover Elementary, which is in Palo Alto Unified School District. They're actually going to be replacing the entire campus with the prefabricated buildings. And they're bidding this out. I believe last week the bids were coming in to select contractors for this. So it's kind of exciting time for a lot of school districts. This is a great option for many districts, depending on what your needs are. And what are the pros and cons of each one? I think design, flexibility, adaptability. Stick built has infinite options, but it's limited by code and a traditional architect. One of the things with the stick built design, DSA has never seen it. So when DSA gets their hands on a design, they're going to look at it and make sure it's done right. And they sometimes will make a lot of changes. So if you have a prefabricated building, it's already been designed by DSA has already checked it. It's got a pre-check number. The turnaround is much quicker. You're not, and then DSA makes a lot of code changes, and then your architect has to go back and make a lot of change orders. So that becomes very expensive. Modular building, not a lot of changes, but the acoustics inside a modular classroom are not that great. It's really not a great looking building. Modular buildings, the portables that we have on our campuses, they're great for short-term things. And then prefabricated, you have a lot of flexibility. The quality of the space is not limited. And depending on what type of building you want to have built, there are some options. There is some flexibility in the design. Permitting, DSA stick built had the longest time. First time DSA has ever seen the drawing, and the most potential for DSA changes, and that's where your costs go up significantly. DSA, we make a joke that they bleed all over the drawings with the red. Well, when the DSA plan checkers review your drawings, they make marks that says it has to follow this code, this building code, this energy code, and all of a sudden your building that you thought was going to be like a $5 million building is now like 7.5 million. So DSA can do that when they review these drawings for the first time. Modular is the fastest permitting. Most of them already have a PC pre-check number, and all the mobile modular that you see at every school campus and every school district that's around here, those are pre-made in a factory somewhere, and they get checked very quickly. Prefabricate can be just as fast as modular, but it can be slower than modular if you customize it. So you can make some options. It depends on what your really what your programming needs are for students. Pros and cons. Stick built is the slowest to design and build, and it tends to be the most expensive option. Modular is the fastest to design. Prefabricated tends to fall somewhere in between. probably not the fastest, but it is definitely most cost effective. And it can be just as faster than some modular options, depending on how much you customize the building. The Fremont High School District building, the outside of the buildings are all kind of the same, but when you customize it, they had a mock apartment, they had a kitchen, they had a meeting room. That's where it became a little bit more intricate, the design, but the outside of the building, that was very quick. Pros and cons, and these are pretty common. If you have durability, if you have a really good contractor and a really good architect and there's good construction oversight, the stick built is going to last for 50 years. It's a good way to go. Modular has the lowest quality of materials, the durability, they only gonna last 20 years if you're lucky. Prefabricated though, can last just as long as the stick built building. So really no major differences other than cost. Pros and cons of environmental, stick built has a lot of waste. Modular, not a lot of waste because they build in a factory, they know exactly how much every building is gonna be, how much raw materials they're gonna need. Prefabricated, material waste is lower. They have a lot of sustainability, environmental designs could be added to it. And that really makes the building, we heard the kids talking today, it made me like how excited they were to think about the environment, right? The environmental concerns of having a quality building, it does matter. Legality, there's a lot of different ways to deliver the project. You can do a lease back, low bid, multiple prime, modular building. Usually you have to hire a general contractor to bring it in on a crane and drop it down. Sometimes it's on the ground. And then prefabricated is really, if you have a good contractor and a good architect, prefabricated is really a good way to go if you secure that person early in the design process. So some of the questions and really next steps is talking more in-depth study session suggestion, possibly a more detailed information on any construction methods that we might have talked about tonight. Also want to probably see if we can talk a little bit more about our budget and design budget, procurement methods, and any plans on revising or updating our facilities master plan. The current facility master plan is from 2014, it's 9 years old. There's been a lot of changes in our district needs, and so that'd be something that we would recommend to probably look about maybe updating our master plan as well.
Right.
Lots to think about.
Thank you. Any questions?
The Fremont Union example, is that the new building that has their adult school in it and then like a meeting room for their board? Okay, then I've been inside there and it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's really nice, like you would not even, you would think that it was all custom stick built, but it's really beautiful.
Yeah, the outside panels were all brought in, but the inside was the custom part. Yeah.
Had Sacred Heart, I toured them and it likened it, it looked like the rest of Sacred Heart. So I think it's Loyola and Oak that have nice wood paneling on that outside of the classroom. It looked like that. It was amazing. You know how quickly it went up? It went up in 2 months.
Yeah.
Anyway, and it's like Legos. I mean, really durable Legos. Anyway, sorry, discussion. I just wanted to add that in.
I'm confused. Are you in favor of prefabricated or not?
Oh, right.
Inside.
All good options. They really are. It's all, I think, to answer the question, they all have pluses and minuses. And so then you have to decide what are our priorities, what is our budget, and then what can we afford and what's realistic for the district.
Hence the study session, right?
Right, so does it make sense to move forward planning a study session? To be able to go a little deeper.
I was gonna say, my personal feeling is we can probably get rid of stick built. And we already know about modular and none of us, I don't think any of us are enthused with modular, which leaves.
I think-
I was surprised.
Yeah, I think a study session that it still actually includes them all, because I think whatever we're building may actually have components of all three, or at least 2 of them. So I think still getting more in depth is worth it.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, I personally would like to understand a little bit better how you go about bidding the prefabricated ones, because like every prefab company has their own spin on it, right? And so I'm not sure, sort of on a chicken and egg thing, how you sort of figure out what your trade-offs are without getting, so I would like to understand more about that. And then, I mean, the master plan too, we need to figure out among us what the workflow is there.
You
As Eric says, it needs a lot of updating.
No, I agree with everything you just said there, that the master plan part is something we tried to update a couple times. And frankly, got derailed by different conversations, so I think that does need to be discussed. Certainly I've always led more to a prefab myself, but I agree, the bidding process, is a lot of unknowns, would have to be sunshine for me a little more. That's my, more perception on my side than it is having great knowledge to work with.
One of the questions I had for the study session, I think, is whether there's economies of scale across our campuses. We have this sort of slightly odd circumstance where essentially all of our campuses are half built. So I'd be interested to know whether, if we went with a prefab vendor, whether we could save any money versus stick built by doing similar things at more than one campus, sort of at the same time.
I think we could, that'd be a great study session to explore that.
Any other suggestions or comments?
I'm in favor of the study session.
Oh, absolutely. I guess to cover all of the above and figure out how we would start backup facilities, master plan, because, yeah, it's been way too long. Having been part of the original incarnation.
Right, we'll look for a date in May
Yeah,
to see if we can get everyone together.
great. All right, moving right along to resolution 22-23-13 local zoning exemption. Eric.
So this is also related to the 10 site, and part of our, tonight we're asking the board to approve resolution 22-23-13, that the 10 site project is exempt from local city and zoning, building ordinances and regulations. And then once approved, we would send a form letter to the city of Mountain View, letting them know that the district is exempt from the requirements.
All right, any questions or discussion on this?
Good question. How's that impact the negotiations we've been having with the city kind of going? Are they expecting this, or is this going to come out of the pool?
I don't think anybody's built a school in the city of Mountain View in a long time, so this is probably will be a new thing you probably haven't seen in quite a while, I would think. But not uncommon for most cities. Most all schools are not. Anybody that does a new school or new building, you are exempt from that as long as the board files a resolution. It's not uncommon.
So that is what I'm worried about the ongoing conversation.
I think when I discuss things with city councilors, I've mentioned like, we're not actually subjected to your zoning by law. They have understood.
It's actually not quite correct that nobody's built a school, not even a while. They built it just a couple of years ago.
Elementary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
What's the one that's, isn't there one on, one of the Catholic schools on Magdalena? Remember?
But that's different. They,
Private
that's
schools are not.
private
No,
schools.
I know, but I mean, so they have gone through the process of zoning that and figuring out what the right things to do. They are familiar with.
They are, in
school.
this case, that's what's out there, but we're talking about Mountain View, but. Get what you're saying. All right, can I get a motion to approve resolution 22-23-13 local zoning exemption?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Moving on to approval of 22-23, 23-24 LASD transportation plan.
Sure. So last year when Governor Newsom passed the state budget, there was some language in there about school districts that are LCFF funded
that we're gonna receive additional funding if they have a transportation plan. It's very unclear if any basic aid school districts would benefit from that. With further consultation with other neighboring school districts, and we talked to Mountain View, Los Altos, they are submitting a transportation plan as well. And then also with school services, we are gonna submit a transportation plan approved by our board. And then we won't really know until the state gives their second apportionment, not till June. And if we do, we could possibly receive some ongoing funding for transportation for approximately $80,000 per year. The bulk of our transportation money is for our special education students. And that we're hoping that the board would approve this plan tonight. This would be for the 22-23 and 23-24 school year of the transportation.
Any questions? Discussion? No? All right, can I get a motion to approve the 22-23 and 23-24 transportation plan?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's it, 5-0. Moving right along. We believe the next one's for policies, right? No, lease agreement.
So
Lease agreement with CSA.
this will be the last item tonight. So before the policy update. So the school district, probably a year and a half ago, they approved an agreement with the county to use the old Joanne Fabrics as a vaccination site. And Joe Simonian came in several meetings ago and talked about how thankful the county was, and now Los Altos has one of the best, one of the highest vaccination rates in any local cities. The vaccination clinic has demobilized. The Community Services Agency of Mountain View approached the district and asked if they could possibly lease out the site to pass out food to the community, use it for handing out gift cards, food, and clothing and things. And we said, yes, that'd be a great idea. And so their current location is undergoing some construction. So they were asking if they could use this temporarily until the 10th site construction starts. And we said we would gladly be partners with them, just like we were with the county for the vaccination clinic. So tonight we're asking the board to approve a lease agreement with Community Services Agency of Mountain View.
Any questions? Any discussion? I welcome this lease agreement. They're a great organization beyond the giving food and gift cards. They connect our most underserved in our community with services. They have a lot of caseworkers helping, so they really do a lot, basically God's work for our community members. And we have, I guess, unofficially been working with them for a past year and a half to help give food to our underserved, to our LASD families in the neighborhood in which they live. And with this lease, we could actually start doing the distribution from there to our community, because we are in our district, and in fact, in between spot for both of those economically disadvantaged areas of our district. So I'm really excited about it. All right, so can I get a motion to approve the lease agreement with Community Services Agency?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? All right, 5-0. On to board policy update.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, bajillion of
A
them.
through N. Here we go. So you have tonight, we're not gonna read them aloud. Tonight you have a handful or more of updated board policies. This is the evening of our first read, so they will come back on the May 1st board agenda. I ask just for time and energy that you take time over the next month and read through. If you have questions, concerns when we meet, that's a great time for us to make any changes or to bring forward. I'm not just looking at you, but I did want to point out, which one is it, Marcy? The comprehensive safety
That's
plan.
for
the very-
AR 450.
Yep, there is one area in there that talks about the people that we notice when schools are developing their school site safety plans. And the text includes the local mayor. Well, we do not notify our local mayor. That's really not our partnership. We work closely with our police partners. So when this comes back, it will be updated with the actual people that we consult with outside of our schools. So it's accurate. That one just slipped me.
Anybody have any questions, comments on any of the board policies? No, all right. I am good. I don't have any comments. I guess meeting adjourned.
No.
I got it. It's like, tired. Board administration comments. Carrie.
Two brief comments. I hope you have a happy spring break and upcoming holidays. In addition, I just want to mention we've been going with the leadership team around to the schools and visiting classrooms as teams. And it's been delightful seeing the good work with kids and teachers in the classroom. This past Tuesday, our entire team went and visited Kathy Davog over at Almond and Hector Lopez over at Block. And it was just really inspiring to see them doing their thing. So we're getting around to all the schools and calibrating about best practices and how to give good feedback to teachers. So.
Awesome. Eric?
Thank you.
All right, Steve? Brian?
Back on the 16th, since we last actually met, Vladimir and I attended the budget review committee meeting, which was productive, a lot of brainstorming.
Vladimir? Got you. Shelley?
The one thing I wanted to mention is that I attended the Santa Rita International Festival. It was beautiful and amazing and just so nice to see the Santa Rita community come together in support of such a great event. And I know they want to expand it to the other schools, and if the other schools are interested, Santa Rita has the knowledge and the know-how that they would be more than happy to share. But it was a great event.
Sandra? Anything else? All right. All right, I have a list. The challenge team, Mark Gurman, I'm part of an education roundtable where it's trustees, some superintendents from different areas. Anyway, where he lets people know about some of the bills he has coming and then ask us questions of what's concerned. So I always drumbeat the unfunded and underfunded mandate. I continue that advocacy. And so he understands that. He definitely brought forward, and I think a lot of us know about it, he's trying to do computer science as a high school requirement, which I generally supported because it's an easy one. Well, it's not one we don't have to worry about. But our high school district already has it. It would just be a matter of requirement. I mentioned the overcoming bigotry and event in Sunnyvale, which I went to because I liked the idea of it, and it's something that I wanted to see if we could bring to our area. Shally and I did Project Cornerstone, Asset Champions, and then kids in the Children's Summit afterwards. It was an all-day event time in Santa Clara. And we did this check event for Marcia's retirement. We had an SEC FBA meeting. And yes, I'm president-elect and Shelley is treasurer-elect. So we're kind of big deals if you didn't already know.
Yeah, you also might want to delegate, right?
I had actually been already appointed as a delegate when one of the fellows, I believe
You're more bigger deal than Michelle.
I'm not a bigger deal. We're equally a big deal. I attended the county put on a reception for all the schools and school districts that had gotten California Distinguished Schools. So I had gone to that. It was a lovely event where she recognized every last school district and school. And we have these lovely poster boards that I brought back for us. And went to the Lisa DeMoore talk that was put on by the MBLA speaker series. about the emotional lives of teenagers. I went, you know, in my official capacity and also as a parent, because I have 3 teenagers. And then also went to the Mountain View Chamber of Commerce City Update, which is their version of state of the city. Where we were mentioned on one slide, but not mentioned in the room. Because they thought we were a feeder school. I let the fellow know afterwards that in fact, 25% of our students are in Mountain View, and that we have a school in Mountain View. So I'm hoping the chamber understands that going forward. And that is it. And now we are actually adjourning.
Marcy, really.